only planet with chocolate. Tell us more.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the military abductions started, um, as I said before, sometimes when I had a visit with the star people, afterwards, military would show up. And when I stopped answering their questions, they started attacking me. And I also started um, ending up kind of randomly in military bases. Sometimes these government agents would come to my house, and it would be like, I'll give you an example. I went to bed one night, and then seemingly I got up out of bed to go to the kitchen and get a drink of water. And standing in my kitchen was a man dressed in a brown suit. And I got the impression that he was a government agent, one of these, what I called the secret government people. And I, I imagine because of my calm reaction and everything that I was out of body. I was not in my physical body. And so, I started talking to him pretty calmly. And as he was talking to me, it seemed like something about his voice and the way he was speaking brought us to, it changed the scene and it brought us to this underground military base. So we were standing then,
You literally just morphed there, or just trans.
basically, yeah, because I was already out of body. And so it's kind of like a psychological hypnotic type of
Was
trick, I
he
think.
out of body as well?
Must have been, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So so the scene changed and we were both standing together in this military base. It was underground, and I knew that for sure later when I left. So we were in this room. There were
Again,
no
sorry.
windows or anything.
Were there any symbols, any identification, anything around anywhere saying anything?
This was very vague. I didn't see any. This was not one of the instances when I saw Army or Navy or Air Force. This was just kind of plain gray walls, and it was only one story. The ceilings were kind of short, and he said that we had to wait for something. So we were waiting there, not sure for what. So I kind of got bored and I walked into this other area, and it was a large open room, and there were three doctors there. They were wearing white lab coats, and they had a table, uh, like a metal table that they were getting set up for me. And I was just kind of exploring. They were busy doing their thing, and I went exploring the building. And it was all the same kind of gray walls. It looked like it was probably like cinder blocks or concrete or something walls that were painted gray. And this one main room led to a hallway. I went down that hallway, and there were a bunch of doors. And I looked into some of these doorways. And one room had a purple light in it. The whole room was bathed in this purple light, and there were what looked trees, like it was a fake little forest in there, and with purple light in it. And then I heard people talking down the end of the hallway. I didn't quite go that far yet. I turned around and went back into the main big area where these three lab coat people were setting up this table. And I went in the other direction to another hallway. I went into this room, and sitting on a bench in this little room, and this room actually had a window that looked out into the main area. There were what looked like two aliens sitting on this bench. And I started talking to them,
When
and
you're
I was
talking
being
about
friendly to
aliens, are
them.
you talking about greys?
These turned out to be suits, rubber suits. They were not really aliens. I don't think they were grays. They didn't really look like grays. They were a little bit taller than that, but they had the big heads with the big black eyes. And as I realized they weren't real star people, they were, because they didn't reply to me or anything. I didn't pick up anything from them. So I walked up to one of them and I nudged his shoulder and his head toppled off. It was a helmet. So these were two suits, like rubber suits that a human would wear to pretend that they're an alien. And so that made me a little angry. And I walked out of the room and there was actually a security guard standing outside of this room. Now he was wearing a uniform, but his shirt was, it was blue. I think it was dark blue. His shirt and his pants were dark blue. But I got the impression that he was supposed to be guarding this room. And I asked him, why are those fake aliens in there? And he actually replied me, to gain the confidence of people like yourself. So I went back out to this large area where the three people in the lab coats were, and they asked me to come over to the table. And I did. And they asked me to lay on this table because they wanted to get a lock on my frequency. And I laid on the table for them, and they hooked up all these little wires and little sticky patches all over me. And they actually gave me an injection in my arm, and they said it was to help me to stay calm, even though I was already calm. And so I let them do this. And I laid there for a couple of minutes, and being the very curious person that I am, I didn't stay very long. I got bored and I got up off the table and I took all this stuff off of me and I jumped off the table, and they didn't try to stop me. They were very, very disappointed, very, very sad that they could not get this lock on my frequency. So I wanted to go back down the hallway where I heard those people talking. So I went back down the hallway with all the doors and the room that had the purple light coming out of it. And I went down the end of the hallway where I heard all these people talking. When I looked in that doorway, I saw what must have been military psychics, like in training. They were all young men, probably in the early 20s. And when they saw me, there was probably 6 or 7 of them in there. When they saw me, they rushed out after me, and I ran. And I ran through the main room. I ran past the room I originally was with the government agent. And at that point, I started flying because I knew I had to get out of there fast. And that's another thing I learned with the star people. I actually started to teach myself how to fly when I was younger, but they helped me learn how to do that. So I started flying, and these 2 spirit friends appeared, and they helped me, and they led me to the doorway. There were 2 double doors, but they were kind of up in the ceiling, and they opened, and we flew straight up out, and I looked back down behind me, and I saw a marsh, like water and marshy area and cattails and pine trees. And these double metal doors were open. It was just like a big hole in the ground. And I went up, and then I started crying because I realized, wow, how real it was and where I was underground and everything. So that was one example of how I'd end up in these places. Now, recently, it was when I was still in the United States. So it was probably around 2010. One night, after I went to sleep, I ended up going to another underground place. It turned out to be a military base, an underground installation. So it started where I was standing in this a meeting area with a bunch of other humans. And I noticed that the walls were very rusty, like they were made out of metal, and they looked really old. And I noticed that there was a curve to the wall, and I couldn't see around the curve.
Was it a crashed ship? An old ship?
No, definitely not. It was a huge cylinder under the ground that had many different levels. but I didn't realize that quite yet. So I was down there, and first thing I noticed was the walls were all rusty. It would look very old, and there were humans living there, like in little apartments. But these humans were not happy. I don't know if they got tricked into going down there or if they were taken down there, but there were even families there, like with children. And these people were very quiet and very, very solemn, very scared, obviously. And I saw this family, a mom and a dad and two kids, and they were all holding hands and were all staying very close together. And everybody kind of kept their heads down. They were looking down. And luckily for me, I knew that I was just a visitor there, that I was there just, temporarily. So what they were doing was, like, this was supposed to be their daytime, although there were no windows at all. And it was just very dark and dingy in there, but there was lighting. So this lady, this nice lady, asked me if I wanted to hang out with her. What they were doing was bartering or trading with each other. Some people had little stands where they were trading their wares, like just little knickknacks or something you'd see at a yard sale, like maybe a couple of clothing items. And this was supposed to be their daytime area and their social area where they would be together. And so I said yes to this nice lady, this human lady, and I sat with her, and she had some things she was trading. And so it seemed like a couple of hours I was doing that. And so as I'm doing that, this military officer walks in. Now, this man was wearing an army uniform, clearly an green olive drab, kind of like an old-fashioned army uniform, like maybe something from the 1950s. But this individual was huge, and I knew right away he was not human. And as he got closer, I could tell he was reptilian. But he was taking on the guise of a human, but clearly he was not. He had very broad shoulders, broad chest, very huge. And everybody avoided him. Everybody was afraid of him. Well, he walked straight up to me, and he asked me, he said, "When you're done here, can I ask you a few questions?" And I said, "Okay." And then he turned around and walked away. And so it wasn't too much longer where a whistle sounded, a loud whistle, almost like the workday's over, And so people started packing up their stuff and going back to their little rooms. And I knew that they were putting their stuff away, and then they were all going to head to this cafeteria where they would eat, and then they go back to the rooms for the night. And so at that point, the military reptilian officer in the army uniform, he came back and he kind of just looked at me, and I was like, okay, I know I'm supposed to follow you now. And so I followed him. And so this was the first time I got to go outside of the main area with the curve around the wall. And so then I got to see, he took me to the center of this place. And there was a huge chasm, a very deep chasm. And I realized that this was underground, and this was a huge metal cylinder, huge, under the ground, that had, I don't know how many levels. But as I stood there looking down the center with the military officer next to me, and there was actually a picture, a drawing that I made of me standing, that I sent to you. It's me standing next to this officer, and we're looking down into this tube that's in the ground. For the first time, I saw a little bit of sunlight coming from up above. It was pretty high up there, but I could see there was just a little opening where some sunlight came through. And up there, I also saw a really disturbing sight. It seemed like this, and everything was like old metal. It was old and rusty. There was a metal, a clasp or a hook. And hanging from this were 5 humans. And it looked like they were hanging by, I was hoping they were hanging by their clothing. It looked like they were hanging by their upper backs, like between their shoulders. It was connected. And I saw that up there, and I could look across, and I saw there were some people walking around, but they think there were people who worked there. There were like a maintenance crew. There wasn't a whole lot of military. Like really, the only military person I saw was the one standing next to me. And there were lights, but as I looked down these levels, maybe there were 50 levels. The farther down it got, the darker it got, so I couldn't see the very bottom. I did end up going down there. So the reptilian military officer asked me if I could step a little closer to the edge. And we were already close enough to the rim of this thing, to this chasm looking down. But I stepped up a little closer, and as soon as I did that, I felt myself swiftly being lifted up into the air. And I imagined it was one of those hooks that the other people were hanging from. So I got pulled up pretty fast, and then almost immediately dropped, as in free fall. And I was falling down the center of this tube, this huge thing in the ground. And I closed my eyes because I did not want to feel fear. I knew that would be the end of me. So I kept myself calm. I closed my eyes, and I was thinking, and I could feel myself falling and the wind rushing past me. And I was thinking, am I going to die? Are they, this is the way they're going to kill me? And I thought, no, probably not. They wouldn't have brought me here for that, to do this way. And I thought, well, maybe there's water at the bottom and I'll hit the water. And I thought, no, that's still going to kill me because it's too far. So I just stayed calm, at peace. And after a minute or so, the falling sensation stopped. And I opened my eyes, and I was waking up in a well-lit room that looked very modern. It was a white room, all the walls were white, and I was sitting on what seemed to be either a couch or a bed. It didn't seem to me like a hospital bed or anything like that. But I clearly had missing time, so I don't know what happened when I was in there. As I was sitting up, this officer walks in the door, and he nodded to me, and I knew that means I'm supposed to go with him.
That was the same,
So I
the
got
same
up and
officer.
The same one, yeah. So I got up and I followed him out the door, and as soon as I went out of this well-lit, white, modern room, everything was old, rusty metal again. And he walked over pretty close to this elevator, which would look like something out of a mine shaft. It was a really old, like work elevator. It was very small. It was just enough for the two of us to get on. That was great, being crammed in there with the reptilian. And so I got up onto this thing with him, and it was like a cage around it. It was old and rusty. And so I pulled the cage door closed behind me, and he hit some buttons or something, and we started going up. And then I lost consciousness. So after that, I woke up the next morning in my bed, and I had pain in my elbow, in my right elbow. Not long after that, I could see a mark on my elbow, a red mark. It was like a red circle with 6 dots inside of it. And very shortly after, I had so much pain in my elbow that I could barely move my elbow. And a couple of nights after that, my husband, John, went through a very similar experience. And we think that he went to the same underground base and had something done to his elbow also. And so both of us, after that, had really sore elbows, and we went to the doctor. We had x-rays and everything, but there was nothing to be seen. There was nothing to be found in the x-rays, and really no explanation as to why we had so much pain. And it was that way for at least a couple months, and then the pain subsided. So that was, like 10
Did the
years
dots
ago.
have a pattern like a flower? Like
They were in a circle.
irregular pattern?
Yeah, it just like the six dots. Actually, I think there was one dot in the center also. It almost looked like it could have been like, from a vaccination needle or something like that. Um, but yeah, that faded away after about a week or so. And he had a mark on his elbow. Actually, his had something that looked like a lightning bolt in it, and it was red. Both of our marks were just, red, and they faded away. So that's an example of a military abduction. And there's actually this military psychic who has, I kind of feel like she's my caseworker or
I
something,
mean, sorry, was that
because
definitely on this
I've
planet?
been
Oh,
seeing her for so many years, at least for like 20, 25 years or so. She started a long time ago, coming to ask me questions and stuff about the star people, and then attacking me. And nowadays, it's not like that for me anymore. I have a lot of control now, and I've learned how to defend myself. So she was always wearing a dark blue military pantsuit, and I got the impression she could have been Air Force. And she sometimes would wear all black,
well,
like an
there's Air
all
Force
black
blue and there's
pantsuit.
navy blue. Navy blue's much darker,
I'm
isn't it?
sorry, I can't hear you now.
Ah,
Oh, wait a second. I think my speaker went off. Okay. Say that again.
yeah. It's there's navy blue and there's Air Force blue. Air Force blue is much lighter for the
Okay.
blue sky, and I think navy blue is much darker.
Okay. She was wearing dark blue,
That
real
would be
dark
the
blue.
senior service, the navy.
Yeah. So I wrote about her in both of my books. I call her the lady with the black hair, the crazy lady with the short black hair. But yeah, she's been harassing me for years and years, and now I'm at the level where I can really defend myself, so she doesn't come around anymore. That has kind of it has stopped. But what I'm really focused on now is the shift that we're going through, and clearly there's a splitting off happening where some of us with love and light,
Okay, I'm going to
and
show you.
we're awake and
There's the
aware.
book. That's on your side. I shouldn't have put it there. But
uh,
this is the. Oh, I can't really show the book. It's too difficult. So you've got this book, The Shift, and you have several other books. I mean, why don't we just talk about the books so that people
okay.
can get these? We have a great bookshop here in Devizes called the Hanover Bookshop. Devizes Books gets all your best books very quickly, and they've just got another one for me this week by Nick Redford. Redfern,
Wow, nice.
yeah.
Nice.
So
Okay, so yeah, in 2005, I wrote my first book called Invitation to the Self: Journey with the Star People. I recently redid that book and gave it a new cover and a new title. I changed the title to Journey with the Star People. So that's my first book, Journey with the Star People. My second book is The Shift, which just came out a couple of months ago. So it's basically the story of my whole, my spiritual journey throughout my life and all of my experiences with the Star People and the military abductions. Over the years, there's been, I don't know how many, thousands of experiences that I've had, and I've written about a lot of them in the books. And
well, in
the main,
part three, we could maybe tomorrow we could maybe go through a lot of those.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely soon. Not
yeah.
tomorrow, but soon,
Okay,
yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah, the main thing that I want to get across to people now is the importance and the urgency of doing your best to let go of the chaos of the outside world and the matrix system, the entire thing that's been built up for humans and has had humans under control. This is all going to go away for us for we who are waking up and shifting into higher awareness. We are remembering who we are, and we're gaining our power back. We're remembering our true selves. And so I'm telling people to go inward and focus on being at peace with yourself and preparing yourself mentally and in every way for what is to come, there's going to be a lot of changes. And according to the star people, the entire human matrix system is going to vanish. It's just, there's going to be a reset. And
Now we keep
the way to get
hearing
through
this
it,
thing, the reset. You're not talking about a financial reset. You're talking about a reality reset.
yeah,
3D is going to be
reality.
reset.
Yes. The teachings, the next level of teachings I had with the star people were focused on this, on the shift. And we did things like dismantling the matrix. We did this psychic exercise with a number of people from my class, other humans from my class. And we basically went through this process where in our minds, we dismantled the matrix. We took everything down and we basically let go of everything in our minds that was, you know, our ideas about who we are, our role in life, and all of this, kind of just let it all go and go back to the true nature of who we really are, our spiritual selves. And we can get all into this in the next section.
Yeah.
But I actually watched New York City melt away and turn into a cellular structure, like completely going back to the beginning.
Like a cellular structure as the matrix grid collapsed, that
Yes.
dissolved, or what?
Yeah, I was on a ship. It was interesting because I was actually on a man-made wooden ship with the star people. I don't know if this was for my benefit or what it was, something about being human. But we're floating in the ocean off the coastline of New York City. And the ship lifted up into the water. We were levitating about 20 foot up. And I was watching New York City, the skyscrapers, the top of them looked like they started to melt just from the top down. And everything, the skyline, everything human made, all the buildings was disappearing right in front of me. And what was taking their place looked to me like little round cells. They were just floating in the air. And there's actually a drawing that I sent you of that, where I'm trying to show like these little cells floating in the air. And this is just one of the numerous times where they showed me different examples of what was going to happen. I'm not sure if I should take this literally or symbolically or what, but it is urgent that we go inward and focus on love, do everything we can to be at peace, and remember who we really are. Because the controllers who have been controlling everything and keeping everyone in a state of hypnosis, they are losing it. They are losing control, and they know that, and they know the shift is happening. They can't stop it. So now they're pulling out all the stops. They are basically panicking. And that's why to everyone who's waking up, it's ludicrous. I mean, you can't even believe the things that are happening. And the majority of people are going along with it. It's pretty crazy. But this is part of the shift. So it is.
Which is the whole point of this interview.
Thing.
The whole point of this interview is to get this out there.
Right. It's about the shift. It's about this great change that we're going through. And they're going to get worse because the controllers are going to follow their agenda. They're going to do everything they can to save their lives. They have to. So they're going to play it out until the very end. And the people who are on the left-hand path and they're stuck in that world, they're going to have to play it out. Unfortunately for them, they're just not ready yet to shift up into a higher level of awareness. But if you've got love in your heart and you can do this, you can lift yourself up and you can just kind of let the old controlling matrix, just let it go.
Well, there used to be a radio station, is a radio station called Radio Caroline. And that was on a ship because the restrictions in broadcasting in the UK were so severe they only allowed the BBC, but things changed a little bit, but not that much. Their slogan, their broadcast slogan in the 70s and the 80s was loving awareness. Those disc
Right.
jockeys sitting on a ship in the North Sea,
Yeah.
which isn't the
That would
best
figure
place
you'd
to
have
be
to
in a
be out in the
storm,
ocean to do that.
and that was loving
Yeah.
awareness.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's all about love. I mean, love is a very high frequency.
Now,
That's
I'm
where you
now
want to
going to
be.
sort of poo-poo this. We've got this sort of hey man, sweet love and L.A. This sort of thing of the 1960s, which was sort of taken over the CIA, Coral Canyon, all that stuff, LSD. Was that an attempt to sabotage this shift, or what? I mean,
Could
explain
be. I
that.
mean, yeah, because they've been following their agenda. Their plan has been how long has it been in the works? For 1,000 years, maybe. I don't know, but that could definitely have been part of the plan. And the love that I'm talking about isn't a mushy, emotional kind of love. It's like power. It is the strongest force.
Yeah, this is
Love is the
important because
strongest force.
I think a lot of people have been disenfranchised with the sort of love and light people. They've sort of got the wrong end of the stick. Is
Yeah,
that so? This is very important that it's different to that.
it's very different. It's not about not doing anything, okay? It's not about, oh, just sit down and think happy thoughts and don't take any action. That's not what I'm saying. I've learned over the years dealing with these military abductions and psychic attack. I've actually come to the point now where I don't have to fight them. I fill myself with this, I'm calling it love, but it is the power of source. Okay, it's being connected to spirit, to God, to all that is, and remembering my true eternal self. This is what I'm calling love. It connects all of us, and it means that you are in control, you're in power, and you can take action. People who are standing up, who are speaking their minds, who are going to the protests and doing things like that. Don't consent. It's about being strong within yourself. This is the love that I'm talking about. It's the greatest power that there is. It can overcome any negativity. I've actually been in fights with these military psychics, and the one, like my caseworker that I told you about, she can't attack me anymore because I'm just above that, because of this high frequency that I've gotten to. And it's about being loving and caring, but also standing up and speaking your truth. And now's
Yes,
the time for us to all do that. We've
a lot
got
of
to
people are
do
doing that
something.
right
We've got
now.
to take action.
The people on the freedom marches. There's a great
Yeah,
new thing here called the Freedom Network. People being
yeah,
positively and effectively aware and doing something about it.
right. They're standing up and they're speaking their truth, and that's what we all have to do now. It's time to put an end to the insanity of what's going on, and remember who we are and take our power back. The whole the whole thing's going to fall apart. So let go of all of this this chaos that's been happening. Let that go. Stand up and manifest your own reality. Okay, do it from a higher plane of consciousness, and just let go of everything from the past and recreate this. This is what everybody who has love in their heart and they're standing up for themselves, they're not consenting, they are taking control. We're taking control back. That's the direction that we've got to go in. And all the good people, the light workers and the truthers, everybody's been trying so hard to wake people up. This is their direction we're going in, a very good direction of love and light. That's what I mean by keeping love in your heart. It's peaceful, but it's very strong. And this is what we need to do now.
Well, that I think is a good point to end on. That, did you think, for now?
Yeah,
And
sounds good.
that's fantastic. So we'll
Cool.
do a part 3
Okay.
next time.